on Facebook.
Yeah, it's my screen is telling me that as well.
Yeah. So let me see. It is live.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to Cricket Fusion's live broadcast. Today we are starting a series of episodes where we will share some exciting content related to cricket, especially the local cricket. So in today's episode, we are going to share some very useful knowledge about club management and how you run a successful club. And I have invited Rob Kirkwood to share his knowledge. Rob, if I give a little bit introduction of him, Rob is a retired university IT services manager and the secretary of Wollaton Cricket Club in Nottingham. He's involved with cricket for a very long time, and I think his club is doing really, really well as well. So let's welcome him in the show and chat with him. How are you, Rob?
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
So how's everything with you in lockdown? How things are?
I'm on a personal level. Yeah, we're managing. Yeah, my family and I are managing fine. It's difficult, but we are in the fortunate position of having a garden and having places to walk that aren't too crowded, close by. So it could be a lot worse. From a cricketing point of view, obviously it's very frustrating. But as we all recognise at the moment, cricket is far less important than the health of the world. So
Definitely.
We're having to do our bit. But we face an uncertain summer, if not an uncertain future.
So first of all, thank you very much for giving us time. To be honest, you just came on a very short notice as well. So, but thank you very much for that. So having said that, whole series of this whole episodes, we are just gonna talk about overall what goes behind the curtain of a club management, because many people think like turning up on a ground and playing a game, that is it. You don't see like how much effort, work goes behind the scene and for a club management. So you are managing a very successful club in Nottingham. So how's your experience overall? If you can give us a little bit.
Well, I can give you a bit of background, and a background in terms of my experience, but also what running a club involves. I mean, I've been a cricket lover all my life, but I really got involved. I was working this out earlier today, 22 years ago, when my older son was 7. And I just went along to Wollaton Cricket Club as a supportive dad, taking my son and a couple of his friends up there. The following year, I got involved, sort of helping a bit out with the little ones, playing quick cricket, the softball cricket, which was even at that time still fairly new. It had been going for a few years, but not that long. And from then, a lot happened. I got involved, as I said, then eventually it became, as things grew, I formally became the junior coordinator of Wollaton, which, I mean, having been helped along the way by very many people. And I think that is the key to success, whether you're talking about a junior section, which is where I started, or the club or a club as a whole, is that you need a lot of people to make it a success. Where clubs, I mean, I wouldn't say I've seen it happen a lot, but I've seen it happen more than once along the way, is that where a club may have the players, may have the ground, but if it loses the one person who's actually running the club, and sometimes it is a one man or maybe a 2-man or a man and not necessarily a man, but in the cases I'm thinking about, it was men, not women. That person goes, they become ill, they move away, life overtakes them some way, and the club can collapse. So the thing which has kept Wollaton going in my time is the fact that all the way through we've had quite a decent number of people involved. We tend to think we could do with more people, but compared with other clubs, we're actually doing quite well, and that was the key. So I ran the juniors, or I was the coordinator of the juniors with a lot of other people for, I hadn't actually counted how many years, but a lot of years. Then when my younger son was starting to play senior cricket, coincidentally, this was when I took early retirement, and there was also somebody who was able to take over from me as junior coordinator. The secretary wanted to move on to other things. I took over as secretary and got more seriously involved with with not just supporting, but trying organising, coordinating the club as a whole. But I took over what was already a successful role, and we've had a very decent sized committee for many years. And in that committee, you obviously have somebody chairing it. You have the secretary who might act as the safety net, to make sure that everything happens, but not doing it all themselves, but doing obviously quite a lot, but making sure that everything is dealt with. The treasurer, obviously, but also I think it's very important that you have on your committee people who have recent experience of playing the game, and ideally people who are actually still part of the playing community. Because again, you hear tales of problems arising in clubs where all the people on the committee are old men. If I count as an old man these days, but well past cricket retirement, probably past work retirement, and there's a disconnect between the committee and the players. And so, I mean, again, this is something which we've done very well, particularly with we've got probably 4 or 5 current players on our committee, as well as a couple of people who are retired from playing, as well as people with other skills and interests. So I think having a decent sized committee with playing experience and other experience, and people who are committed to the club, that they're not just there to service their own interests, they're also they're all the interests of their children. Again, you hear tales of club committees which are actually full of parents who are only really there because of their own
kids are playing.
And I mean, there's probably 4, maybe 3 or 4 people on the committee at the moment who are on the committee because they got involved with the juniors as parents, but they're on the committee, and the way in which they fulfill that role, has no connection with what their own individual children's success or otherwise might be. They're there for the club, for the cricket, not for themselves. So, I mean, that's a bit of background.
So, yes. Very good information. So one thing I want to ask you is basically, the committee management. Is that the most important role for a successful club, do you think?
Well, it probably, I mean, the committee in itself is only as good as what it does.
Yeah.
But I think you need to have a committee. You need to have a group of people
who are excited about cricket, isn't it?
Yeah, who are keen and enthusiastic, but also know what they're doing. And no, that's not to say that everybody knows everything, because obviously that's not possible. I mean, take a very simple example. Simple to describe is that not all of us understand about ground preparation. Not all of us understand about the pitches. Take another one. Not everybody understands the details of accounting, for the treasurer. Not everybody understands the registration requirements, the membership requirements for or the qualification requirements for players to be able to play. I mean,
Mm.
one of the things which I've had to deal with quite a lot, because as secretary, I tend to be the person with whom our senior leagues correspond, is that we need to understand who is eligible to play and who isn't. That may be, well, there are two obvious areas. One is age. Some years ago, there were more formal. There's a more formal introduction of a minimum age requirement across cricket in general, not just the league, any individual leagues rules. Yeah, so we need to understand that. We also need to have somebody. We also need to understand
The league
what
rules,
the
isn't
rules
it?
are about international players.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a personal view which is shared by many people, I think, is that some of the rules that the ECB formalises in recreational cricket is too restrictive about people who are here from other countries for a short period of time. But obviously, as club officials, we need to make sure that we follow the rules that we're given. Even if we don't agree with them, we have to follow them.
Yeah.
So that I need to understand that. On the other hand, I don't need to understand the details of pitch preparation, but we need to make sure that make sure we have somebody who does understand those things, or ideally more than two. So you need a variety of skills, a variety of interests and enthusiasms, and you need to have enough people so that nobody has more to do than they've got time to do it in. And again, that can be one of the problems which particularly smaller clubs have, where maybe they've got a smaller community.
Yeah.
In some respects, they've still got all the same jobs to be done.
So if we list like number of things, I think this will help quite a lot of people who are at the moment doing club management or managing a club. Definitely it will help them. So if we list like what are the main things like for a successful club, that would be like number one, finances.
Yeah.
That, because that is a big part. Then
finances underpin it all.
Yeah, sponsors, like if you kind of find one, then players itself, like recruitment of those ones, and that is also very important. Then registration to the leagues, okay, so your players can play in bigger leagues. So what else, like, do you think like it is kind of a part of the club management?
Well, some of it will depend upon the structure of the club and its relationship with where it plays and so forth, because there are a number, I mean, and this also underpins the finances as well. So if you take a club like ours, we are one of 4 sections of Wollaton Sports Association. They got Wollaton Cricket Club, Football Club, and plus the Tennis Club and the Bowls Club. So from, roughly speaking, mid-April to mid-September, it's a cricket club. From mid-September to April, it's a football club. And the Tennis Club and the Bowls Club have their facilities on the same in the same area. But the pavilion is run by the responsibility for the pavilion is with the Sports Association, which oversees the whole thing, as is the bar is their responsibility. We get a share of the bar. We don't have to pay the rates for the pavilion and the ground, because that's done through the Sports Association, to whom we have to pay per individual a subscription. On the other hand, you get other clubs where the cricket club is the sole owner of the ground, so they have all the responsibilities. There again, they also get the benefit of profits from the bar and anything else that goes on there. And they may be able to rent out their ground to football clubs in the winter, whereas our football club has equal rights to us, which is just how it is. So there are differences there which make a big difference, because if you've got all the profits from the bar and you are living in an area with a group of people who like going to the bar, then that's a big chunk of money.
Mhm.
And although obviously a lot of a lot of people come from cultures where drinking alcohol is not part of their way of life, there's a lot of people in Nottinghamshire for whom it is. So that does make a big bar profits. Do make a big difference.
Mhm.
It's something which benefits us, but not to the same degree as some other clubs. On the other hand, as I say, we don't have the expenses of the upkeep of the pavilion, but
Yeah.
but some other clubs just rent their ground from a council,
Yes, they do. Yeah.
and therefore they don't, and that has probably more.
But
I'm
but
guessing
the,
it means they don't have the responsibility, but they also have more problems in terms of the quality of the ground that they play on.
yes,
Yeah,
and also like they can't play on a very good level as well. Like as they progress through the league, there are certain leagues they say
yeah,
like you have to have like certain kind of a ground where
yeah,
you can play. So these are the things as well come
yeah.
into effect, isn't
And
it?
relationships I mean, again, this is something which we don't have much experience of because, the sports association, therefore us, we own our own ground.
Yeah.
If you relate for some clubs, relationships with the council and what that you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do,
Mhm.
can be a very important role of the committee, because some councils will let you look after the ground yourself even though you don't own it. Some
Mhm.
people some ground councils will insist that only they can do anything on there,
Yeah.
and if it rains on the day they do the grass cutting,
Mhm.
you don't get a good pitch for the weekend. Whereas, the clubs who own their own grounds obviously have a much greater freedom. So that's one area of
Mhm.
of importance, is the is the actual overseeing the facilities. So we our club, as the cricket club, we're responsible for the pitch preparation, for looking after the outfield, for looking after the nets.
Yeah.
Which both we've got some fixed nets and some mobile ones, looking after the artificial pitches. All those things are our responsibility. So you need somebody to do that,
Mhm.
which we do.
Mhm.
Or more than one person involved in those jobs overall, though the key person, as always, is the groundsman.
Mhm.
And then, but we don't have to worry about the actual upkeep
Yeah.
of the pavilion because
We are it.
we're not directly responsible for it,
Mhm.
although clearly we worry about it because it matters to us.
Yeah.
But then I mean, you were talking about sponsorship and fundraising and so forth. Looking after the pitch is a very important thing, and requires money. That requires income, that because obviously there is expenditure.
Yeah.
And the other thing, which I think most clubs operating at our level will also need to spend money on, is it is on one or more, depending on which league you're in, one or more professional, and or overseas players. So that is, and that obviously costs a certain amount of money. So fundraising is important,
Mhm.
and fundraising can come from sponsorship.
Yeah.
It can come from having fundraising events, and it can come from players' subscriptions,
Yes.
both junior and senior.
Mhm.
And those are those I think the three obvious
Three
ways.
obvious. Yeah.
Yeah. And so sponsorship is something which we've worked on more in recent times, as though at the moment with the
Mhm.
COVID-19 crisis,
Yeah.
that's obviously a bit of a uncertain area. I mean, last year we did fine.
Mhm.
How sponsorship will work out with all the pressures on everybody at the moment this season, I'm not in a position to say.
Mhm.
But it's an important area. Again, with fundraising events, obviously say obviously, I mean, there's what we anticipate looking to next year and the year after, assuming the world has a new normality that is compatible with playing
Yeah.
cricket, is that we'll continue the Wollaton Cricket Club Beer Festival, and we'll continue the England versus Pakistan T20, which we launched last year, which was a success in its own right.
Yeah.
Now, clearly, you and I may have different affiliations, but and I'm sure the Pakistan will be looking to take revenge. Yeah, when we
next year maybe. Definitely.
Yeah. But I mean that was very good on I mean, it raised some money for the club, which was important, but it was also a very good community event.
Yes, it does.
In the sense of bringing together, lots of people from the cricket community in Nottingham and in Wollaton in particular. Yeah, some supporting Pakistan, some supporting England, some being neutral. And so so I mean, ideally, if you have social fundraising events, they're good on a community level as well as on raising money to support the cricket.
Cool.
So those things are important. I mean, and obviously smaller events of various sorts as well. And the last thing is obviously subscriptions. And I think for a lot of clubs, subscription, the balance between what you pay as an annual sub and what you pay as a match tax, per game that you play, can vary. Will vary from club to club. But I've noticed that our senior subs have not increased anything like I thought they would have done when I came across some old documents while sorting out our garage. So they were trying to sort of keep the general subs affordable for all. But obviously cricket costs money because you have to pay for cricket balls, you have to pay for the pay umpires, you have to pay
grounds as well if they are away grounds, or you have the 3-4 teams, then you have to have like another grounds, and you have to pay for those one as well. So let's move on. I think that you explained quite well, like sponsors, these are the money where the club runs, so let's move on to players, because player recruitment is also another area to find those new talent and keep them for years on, and making and also feeling them like this is their home. So kind of so that is a very important thing as well. And how do you do like player recruitment? What do you see in players, and who does it for you guys?
Well, I think it I was thinking about how to earlier about how to answer this in a succinct way, because I think there are probably 3 or 4 ways in which players are recruited. I mean, we mentioned overseas players and/or professionals. So I mean, for the last many years, we've just had one paid player, and for the last 6 years, that's been somebody who somebody from Pakistan, and that has worked very well. Before that, we had a variety of players from a variety of other cricket playing countries, and more often than not, that was very good. There's been brief periods in the past when we've had a domestic pro and an overseas, and generally speaking, the actual recruitment would be organised by either the first team captain or another senior player. At the moment, our club captain would generally take responsibility for that. I might well end up, dealing with a lot of the formal procedures after that, but it's the club captain's job, because it's somebody, as well as being the right caliber of player, you want somebody who you feel will fit in with the ethos of the club and so forth. And as I said, I mean, in the years, recent years, that's been absolutely fine. Once or twice somebody hasn't fitted in back in ancient history, but it usually works out very well, because I think what most people tell us is that we are a friendly, welcoming club. And I think that's important, and it's also important that we understand the cultural things, because I'll call it English rather than British. English cricket culture is not necessarily the same as Pakistani or Australian or West Indian. There are similarities and differences, but we're there for the cricket, and we're there to build relationships within the club. And I think that is the important thing: is the in-club relationships need to work well. I mean, it won't work perfectly for everybody all the time, but but in general, people need to understand that everybody's pushing in the same direction. But other recruitment, I think occasionally there will be attempts to, and I think this happens more at other clubs than at ours, to be fair. There'll be attempts to persuade other people that they wish to come and play for your club, because you'll give them all the wonderful opportunities that they aren't going to get where they are. And sometimes those promises are fulfilled and sometimes they're not. So there is occasional direct recruitment, but that's not commonly what we've done. What we have done, I think this has happened sort of significantly in terms of numbers twice in my memory, is that we can end up recruiting friends of existing club players. So if there may be a group of young men who've known each other from school, and maybe in their young adulthood they end up coalescing at one cricket club. If they're particularly if they're working away or away at university, they may lose track, may have lost contact with the club which they grew up at, and they sort of a couple of times we've ended up with a group of young men who, not all, some of whom were born and bred Wollaton players, but not everybody. So it's a social thing, sort of the bringing together of friendship groups, and when that friendship group contains a lot of very good players, then it does well for the club who benefits. But a lot of recruitment of adult players comes from people just getting in touch. So we have our website, or people hear somebody's name on the grapevine and they all get in touch and they'll say, I want to come and play with you. And sometimes that person will be a very, very good cricketer. I mean, there'll be one or two people that's how quite a number of people arrive. They hear of us or they find us on the web and get in touch, come along and think, this is right for me. And that's very often been the way in which our sort of second team and third team has expanded its base, and occasionally first team players. And if you get somebody who turns into being a real first team player through that route, you've done well. And we get and that that has happened over the years. So it is people coming to us. But I think the most important thing of all for any club anywhere is your own junior section.
That is your
and your own players,
homegrown players.
And if you look, I mean, it varies from game to game, but we have had times when more of our first team have been created by growing up at Wollaton than from anywhere else. I think we've had second team matches and possibly even first team matches before we got back in the Premier League, where apart from maybe one person who moved into the area and therefore couldn't have been born and bred here, we're all Wollaton players, from their youth. So having a successful, in terms of numbers and in terms of the quality, is, I think, the most important thing, in terms of recruitment, because you will sometimes grow your own first team players, and at the moment there's a good number of our first team were homegrown, and you're not likely to and if you're a club like ours who is not rich, I mean, we haven't got anybody funding us with large amounts of money, which other clubs allegedly may possibly have, but so we are dependent upon our own income, as we've already discussed. And if you have in that situation, you can maybe afford a professional around whom to build a side, but that side has got to be full of good players who are genuine recreational players, and the best thing to do is grow your own. And we're fortunate that we've been able to do that for a good number of years. But again, that takes a lot of work. And I salute my successors and my successors' successors in building upon what I built upon before my time.
Yeah, I think last 2-3 international hiring of yours were really good, and did good for the club as well.
Yeah,
and definitely these are the things like decision making and getting the right players, and that make a big effect on the team performance and club performance overall. So I think homegrown players, and there are so many factors, but as you explained like very well, like, so let's move on to another thing, like, which is a very big area for you. I think you deal with it, and that is availability of players, because obviously cricket here in UK is on weekends, and definitely some people go on holidays, and they do all other stuff, and not everyone is available almost every week. How difficult this job is for you and for the club, like, to make sure, like, you have enough players who can play for every weekend almost?
That's an interesting interesting question. It can be a challenge. It's not as big a challenge for us as it was 3 or 4 years ago. It is something that is it's always on your mind, but what it means is that, I mean, we've developed our own system of getting availability via email and Facebook, and that works. Is as good a way as any. I think other clubs, we developed that before WhatsApp was a thing. I think other clubs have maybe taken on doing a similar sort of thing via WhatsApp groups, but essentially it's just using electronic means. I mean, when my older son was first playing senior cricket, it was sort of done by phone and word of mouth, and the teams were sort of pinned up on a board at the club. Now it's all sort of done electronically, which is means it, and electronic communication has meant, I think, across the board, junior cricket, senior cricket, has meant it's much easier to do things when your life is otherwise busy than it would have been spending hours on the phone 20 years ago. But the important thing with availability is that you need to have enough players around so that you can cover for when the inevitable gaps occur, because, as you say, people have holidays. Especially younger players may have family holidays. Older players, have wives and girlfriends,
college as well,
and so forth. The first few weeks of the season, it is the exam season. You have students doing GCSEs and A levels. You have other students, slightly older ones, away at university. Some will come back at the weekends if they're close enough, and so on and so forth. We do, because we are situated where we are, we do get some students from Nottingham University playing for us. And again, this is where interesting questions arise about eligibility, because if they're international students, they may not necessarily be eligible, to play in formal league cricket, which can be very frustrating for them and for us. And the fact that you have a number of people often away in the early season does give the opportunity, maybe for the 14-year-olds to play that might not otherwise have played a game, and sometimes they do very well and establish themselves early season and they stay in the team. So it provides opportunities, but you still need enough people to be able to say, yes, I can play. So you need a lot more people than you think you need. And again, I know other clubs, I mean, the last couple of years we've been okay, but the year before that, I think it was, or maybe the year before that, it was very, very difficult. And it becomes especially difficult if you've got 2 Sunday league games and a cup game on the Sunday. And there are some people, I mean, the way life is these days, most of the people sort of, I mean, it's not everybody, but yeah, but generally most people over the age of about 23, 24 can't play twice a weekend every week. They can do occasionally, but you know, their children, their wives, their girlfriends, or maybe just actually having time to do all, to run their lives means that they sometimes need a day at the weekend. So all those factors mean that you need to have a big pool of players, and it does mean that sometimes me and sometimes the captains who do the selection need to end up chasing people up to say, can you play, can you play, can you play? Now generally we can still do that by WhatsApp or Messenger or text or whatever. We don't have to spend hours on the phone doing it. Though sometimes when people drop out Saturday morning, the Saturday third team captain may end up on the phone or asking somebody to phone up on his behalf if he's got family responsibilities. So it is difficult.
It is challenging, as you said, like it is challenging.
But we are fortunate again in that because we've got a junior section, there's very often a keen 13, 14, 15-year-old who will step in at the last minute, or who will play. Who will play. We've got there's one or two retired players who might occasionally dig out a pair of whites, including our new chair. He said he'll get registered in case he is needed to come back onto the field to play again. But some clubs do suffer significantly from this. Particularly, I have to say, it seems to be particularly clubs who are very dependent on their young players who go to schools like the high school or Trent College, who are playing school cricket on a Saturday. So
and also those clubs who don't have like junior section because they're dependent on senior players, and they might not have that luxury of picking juniors.
Well, they and it is a problem. The need to have a junior section is a problem because in our part of Nottingham, our part of Greater Nottingham, thinking about outside the city boundaries, there are most of the local clubs to us have a junior section, which is not that, and they live in an area which is reasonably well populated. If you go out sort of up towards Southall or Newark, down there's a lot of village clubs who don't have the catchment area, to sustain successful junior sections. So the juniors tend to go to one or two or three big clubs, and the smaller clubs in those areas, of which there are a lot, do find it very, very difficult. And I don't think there is there's no clear answer to that. I think a club in the city not having a junior section would just be, I don't think there's any excuse really. Other than they don't have the people to run the junior
club.
But because there are probably a large number of young people in the city who don't live near enough to a cricket club. Again, in Wollaton, anybody who lives in Wollaton wants, it's within walking distance. Might be a bit of a trek for some people, but it's within walking distance. On the other hand, if there are big parts of the city where, for a child to get to a cricket club, it might be sort of 2 or 3 miles, and if the family doesn't have a car, and it's hard. It is harder. To have the junior section, but I think that's the critical bit, both in terms of in terms of growing your own players, in terms of subscription income, juniors, but also keep looking after the game and growing it.
Cool. So I think we thought like it will be a 20-minute video, but I think we already 45 minutes gone past.
You know what I'm like once I start talking.
But I think it's a very lovely and informative discussion we had. And I again want to thank you, and some other time I think we again catch up and might discuss some other aspect of cricket.
There's a lot. There's a lot more that can be said. So it has been a pleasure. It would be a pleasure to do it again.
No, thank you very much for your time, and it was absolutely great to talk to you. And we are signing out. Thank you
Yeah.
very much, everyone who was watching us, and hopefully we'll come up with some more ideas. Thank you very much.
So,
Bye.
as we say these days, stay safe.
Stay safe, stay home, save
Yeah,
lives.
indeed.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Okay.